You're listening to an encore presentation of Life Talk with Wade Sorochan. Highlights of previous shows featuring special guests and open line discussions. Since this is a pre-recorded presentation, please do not call. And now, Life Talk with Wade Sorochan on AM 930, The Light.
International author William P. Young, the author of the hugely popular book The Shack, is making numerous appearances in Edmonton this week. We'll give you the details coming up shortly. Korean Cop has become a literary phenomenon with an international distribution deal and over 6 million copies in print. Chances are you've read it or you know someone who's read it. In a nutshell, it's about Mackenzie Allen Phillips' youngest daughter, Missy, who has been abducted during a family vacation, and evidence that she may have been brutally murdered is found in an abandoned shack deep in the Oregon wilderness. 4 years later, in the midst of this great sadness, Mac receives a suspicious note, apparently from God, inviting him back to the shack for a weekend. Against his better judgment, he arrives at the shack on a wintry afternoon and walks back into his darkest nightmare, where what he finds there will change Mac's world forever. William P. Young was born a Canadian, raised among a Stone Age tribe by his missionary parents in the highlands of what was New Guinea. He suffered great loss as a child and a young adult and now enjoys the wastefulness of grace with his family in the Pacific Northwest. And he joins me on the phone line right now. Paul, welcome to the program.
Hey, Wade, great to be with you.
Yes, I say Paul because you prefer to be called Paul. That's what the P stands for, right?
That's exactly right.
All right, Paul, let's get right into it. We have some callers who want to talk to you as well, but let's just talk about, what inspired you to write The Shack?
It was, I'm a writer in the sense that most people are. You write things for your friends and your family, and I've done that for all my life. I've never published anything, never tried to publish anything. And Kim had just been asking me for a few years before 2005 to write something for the kids that would be sort of putting in one place how I think. And as she said, because you think outside the box. Mm-hmm. And so in 2005, the whole goal was to try to get this story done by Christmas so that I could give it to my 6 children, and they are ages 15 to 28. And I got the story done, but we didn't have the money to actually print it until after Christmas. So the first and only intended run of The Shack was 15 copies at an Office Depot in Oregon.
Did you have any idea that the book would receive this much attention?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
See, because when I gave it to my 6 kids, and Kim, my wife, got a copy, and a couple cousins in Canada, and then the rest of friends, it did everything that I wanted it to do. So it was a done deal as far as I was concerned. I never, ever thought of even publishing it. And it wasn't until friends, kind of kept pestering me that we went down that road.
So why do you think, Paul, then, it has gained this much attention and sold so many copies?
Well, I think that, bottom line, it's a God thing, and there's just no other way to look at it. Words are just words, and unless the Holy Spirit breathes through them and into our hearts, they're not going to change anybody. So whatever this is, and you can look at it and say, well, this is how it's impacting certain people and hear other people, and it's touching people on so many different levels, and from every kind of background, every age, every ethnicity. And I think part of it is because we are built, we're created with an incredible desire for authenticity and for relationship. And many of us have grown up in some sort of religious environment in which religion promised these things, but just wasn't able to deliver. So the story is a very brutally honest look at questions that many of us have, as well as saying, we have tremendous great sadness in our world, in our lives, in the lives of our family and friends. And why? What kind of God is this? Is there a God that is actually good? Then how come he doesn't show up in some of the really deep things?
And is this something that you too were questioning because of your pain and loss as a child and a young adult?
Well, I definitely went through that. I think every human being will question that at some point because it just seems like such an oxymoron. A good God who is all-powerful and evil to the degree that it exists taking place. Any thinking person, I think, will ask that question. And whatever this is, and the weekend Mackenzie spends in the shack represents 11 years of my own life. So it's not like I'm thinking that, you can just deal with your stuff in a weekend. But it's it really is about some questions that human beings ask the best questions. And, the deepest kinds of pain asks the best questions.
Can you tell us about your pain and loss when you were younger?
Sure. I'm a missionary kid, and I'm a preacher's kid. And the missionary kid, I think, is the out-of-the-box part, as well as some of the damage. I grew up in a culture that was not Western culture, and my first 10 years basically were among a Stone Age tribal, cannibalistic, spirit-worshipping people. But they were my family. My parents were young. They were part of a generation that didn't know it had baggage, and part of a generation that was very sold out. If you sold out to the work of God, then God was supposed to take care of the details, which included your children. So, I had a very angry father growing up, brutal disciplinarian, and was very disconnected from both my parents. I didn't see myself as anything other than a tribal person until I went to boarding school at 6, which was required, and then
do what it does.
Yeah, and do you watch it yourself?
The weekend Mackenzie spends in the shack represents 11 years of my own life. So it wraps around all of that, plus sexual abuse that started happening within the tribe somewhere around age 4, because that's my earliest memories of it, in full swing then. And then continued up. I went to boarding school at a Christian missionary boarding school, and it continued there. And then we got yanked out of New Guinea and dropped into the middle of Saskatchewan in the middle of winter, and I started my life here in Canada, and with all the junk that I drug along with me from overseas, and became a religious performer, tried to hold it all together. It all blows apart. It takes me 11 years to dismantle and put everything back together.
So how has your faith and belief system changed now since writing the book?
Well, since writing it, no, because the book is not part of the healing process. The book is really an expression of the healing process. Mm-hmm. And so nothing in that sense has changed it, unless you talk about the depth of being able to stand around and watch people's stories. That I have an unprecedented in my own life opportunity just to be hanging around all kinds of different people who are in great degrees of pain, and watch the Holy Spirit doing things, speaking to them, changing in a transformational way their relationship with God through a little book that I wrote for my kids. How goofy is that?
Okay, well, I've asked you this question. How do you respond to some within the Christian community? They're concerned about the theological content in the book, claiming that it's heretical and promotes universalism.
I think controversy is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, and I think it's healthy. I think it's about time we had these conversations. Some of the controversy occurs because people actually don't even read the book, or they totally misread the book. But that's okay. That then becomes part of a conversation. I personally believe that the book is extremely orthodox, and I've got really great support. You don't get a person like Eugene Peterson to heartily and 100% endorse a book unless there's a strong sense that there's orthodoxy there.
Yeah, right on the front cover it says, this book has the potential to do for our generation what John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress did for his. It's that good. Eugene Peterson.
Yeah, and so, it doesn't bother me in the sense that I'm taking it personally at all. I don't. I'm very confident about the theology of the book, but I'm also very confident that just as I did not, I'm not the one who created all these wonderful things that are happening all over the world because of the story. I'm also not responsible for it being stirred up in people's hearts either. And I think, that's the work of the Holy Spirit. So, it is what it is. Let it become part of the conversation, and maybe we can all move towards some freedom and some healing in our lives.
All right, we're talking with William Paul Young, author of the novel The Shack, and your calls at 780-430-9300, 1-877-827-2346. Let's talk to Pedro. Pedro's on Life Talk. Hello, Pedro.
Yeah, hello, Brother Young. As a fellow Christian here, I sure appreciated your book. I think it's one of the greatest books that was ever written.
Oh, thanks.
And I wonder if you plan to write the book for younger children sometime, too, because C.S. Lewis said, write a book to maximum exposure, write it for young children, like he did with Narnia. And also whether you are considering writing sequels for teepees and igloos or others instead of shacks, as well as the perspective of...
that's too funny. Maybe I'll even do a self-help book called, 7 Steps to the Porch.
And also an invitation by the devil to visit him in a shack.
Oh, too funny. Too funny. no sequels as far as the Shack is concerned. I'm working on some other things. Yes, one of the ideas that we're working on is something that is geared for younger children. That is probably. It talks about, what is the pain, what is the process, where did this come from, that sort of thing.
Pedro, thanks for the call. Paul, what about a movie? There's that rumor going around that this could possibly turn into a movie. Is that even thought about?
Oh, yeah. It's a very serious rumor, but we're taking it very, very slowly, and for a lot of different reasons. You know what? God doesn't need a movie, but if it's something that he's going to bless, then I'd love to be a part of it. If not, forget it.
All right, let's talk to Corrine. Corrine, welcome to Life Talk.
Hi. I've been reading your book all weekend. I'm a very slow reader, I'm sorry to say.
That's okay.
I'm halfway through, but everything that you talked about even today happened to me when I was a kid. And I really appreciate the book. One question I had is I found out that there are two people that wrote books about your shack. Finding God in the Shack, Randall
Rouser.
Yep.
Rouser, and there was another gentleman by the name of Robert something. I missed him.
Yes, there are two books out now.
How do you feel about the people writing about your book?
It's all part of the
miles per gallon. If this is the case, I mean, that's $10 million prize, and I did some research, and it's put on by the X Prize Foundation. And they have team
points of theology that, in the big picture, don't even matter. And
no, it doesn't,
because we're in total agreement about the things that matter: relationship with God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the study of who Jesus is, the fact that our only hope is in Him.
Corrine, thanks for the call.
Oh, you're welcome.
We have open line 780-430-9300, long distance. It's a toll-free call, 1-877-827-2346. Talking with William Paul Young, author of the novel. We also have some books to give away. Maybe you've already read it, you have a copy, you want to give someone a copy of it, or maybe you haven't read it and you would like to read it. Just call in now. We can talk about that with the author who is in town. We'll give you the details of where he'll be appearing over the next few days here in Edmonton. Now, Paul, you spent a lot of time here in Edmonton, didn't you?
I did. I was up here for Breakforth not long ago.
Yeah.
And plus I've got a bunch of friends up here, so it's great.
All right. So tell us about some of the positive feedback you're receiving about the Shack. People have read it and they're writing you, emailing you, saying, you know what, this is life-changing to me for whatever reason. So talk about some of the positive feedback you've gotten from the book.
Oh, man, I've got thousands of stories now. I get about 100 to sometimes as much as 200 emails in a day from all over the world. And it's just touching people on so many different levels. I had a guy stand up the other day in a Q&A, and he's in his 40s, tears running down his face, and he says, you know what, I just got a phone call from my mom. She has been an avowed atheist her whole life, and she just called me and said, son, I just finished the Shack, and I now believe there is a God and that Jesus is the Son of God. Mm. That one of those, and who cares about controversy, and I'm just thrilled. People who are in the middle of their stuff, and their big question is, where is God in this? The book has really opened up a path for them. And one of my earliest emails I ever got was from Edmonton area, where somebody had taken a picture of one of those roadside memorials where a man and his 2.5-year-old daughter had been killed by an 18-wheeler. Mm-hmm. And the photo showed that memorial, but on the post next to it, somebody had bungee corded a copy of the Shack. And what do you do with that? That is so beyond anything that we would think or imagine. It's just unbelievable how it's touching deep places and precious places in people's hearts. Yeah, 780-430-9300, 1-877-827-2346. Again, talking with William P. Young, Paul, the author of the novel The Shack. And like you said, I mean, you never thought in 1,000 years that it would have this kind of impact. I mean, you just wrote it, for your daughters, like you said. And sons.
And your sons. And here it is, you're getting all this positive feedback. And, you do anything within the Christian community, and you'll admit this probably too, and I know this happens in radio as well. You put yourself out there, and you are going to get some criticism.
Yeah, you know what? And it's part of what it is. People bring to the table what they have. and some of it's out of fear, and some of it's out of something else. And you know, at some point, you just go, you know what? It doesn't even matter. It's important that these people can even raise some of the issues. Yes, they are misreading the text. Yes, they are bringing to the table blinders and they don't see it the way that it's even written sometimes. And sometimes there is just straight up, you know, some theological differences, and that's okay. It's got to be okay. We've got to have a place that's safe enough for us to talk about our differences. I can say this: nobody today believes what they did 10 years ago exactly the same. Mm-hmm. We all are in a process of changing our ideas and how we think, and we've got to allow each other the space to do that.
Absolutely. It's similar to, and we've had lots of conversation on this program regarding the atheist bus ads that are like all over Europe and the States and here in Canada. You know, those groups, the Free Thought Association, they're trying to encourage free speech. Then Christians wouldn't have an opportunity to have free speech. So if they want a dialogue, and I had a lot of people call into this program saying, you know, great, let's have a dialogue then.
Yeah, and even for them to say, I don't believe in God, they have to use God in the sentence, which means they're talking about God. And that's more than just ignoring. I mean, it's way down the road positive. You know, people ask me in Europe a lot about, you know, like Dawkins' book Against God, an atheistic book, and I say, you know what? For the most part, I agree with these people. The God that they don't believe in, I don't believe exists either. You know, there's just such a huge difference between what's in people's minds and the God who really is there.
We just have a few more moments with my guest, William Paul Young, author of the novel The Shack, and your calls at 780-430-9300 or 1-877-827-2346. Out to Morinville, and this is Bruce. Good afternoon, Bruce.
Hello. I don't really have a question, much in the sense of just more info about the book. I guess you could say, thinking about in the process of coming back, been away from, you know, the belief and all that. So just more or less more about the book, I guess.
Okay. Have you what here? Does it sound
there,
okay? Does it interesting to you?
It does. Very interesting. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that, and if this helps at all, but I wish I would have had this book 40 years ago. It would have saved me, I think, a lot of my process and a lot of my pain. And it's just that it's a different way of looking at who God is than the way I grew up with. I had a God who was angry most of the time. You know, I actually looked a lot like my dad.
Okay.
And so, you know, I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah, Bruce, we're going to give you a copy of the book, all right?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You hold on line 1 second. We'll make sure Bruce gets a copy of The Shack. Let's talk to Jackie. Hello, Jackie.
Hi there.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually in Chapters yesterday with my nieces, trying to find them a positive book to read. And I have the book myself. I'm guilty, though. I haven't read it yet. Kind of bad for that.
It's all time. It's just not ours.
But I didn't know if it was a book for younger teens, so to speak. Well, she's 15, so
well, then she's
is
easily,
it something that can be directed towards them that they would find useful? Or
sure, let's find out. Paul, what age do you think could be impacted by the book?
Most of the time, the youngest age is so far around 10 years old. So anybody older than that.
Oh, okay.
Which is the age of Missy, right, in the book?
Missy's actually even younger than that.
Oh, she's
like 5 or 6.
Oh, she's 5 or 6. Okay, yeah, right. Oh, Jackie, would you like a copy of the book to give to someone?
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
All right, you hold on line 1 second. We'll make sure you get a copy of it. Let's talk to Lillian. Hello, Lillian.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I was actually, I'm housebound, and I was thinking what a wonderful book to give to my granddaughter, and I haven't read it myself.
You haven't read it yourself?
No, because, as I said, I rarely get out.
Yes.
And I was thinking, what a wonderful book to give to my granddaughter after I read it.
Yeah, I was going to say, make sure you read it first, right?
Yes.
What have you heard about the book so far, or just what you've heard on this program, or did you?
Just what I've heard on the program.
Mm-hmm. And it sort of sparked your interest that you would like to read it.
Yes, it has, very much so.
Yeah. All right, Lillian, you hold on line 1 second. We'll make sure you get a copy for you to read, and you can pass it on as well.
One thing, Wade.
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
One thing we should warn everybody is that the first 5 chapters, the first 5 chapters are very wrenching, and they're not graphic. I don't go to the graphic stuff, but they're very difficult, very hard, and because we're dealing with a very painful subject. So just keep going.
Yes. No, absolutely. Good point. Thank you for that. Let's head out to Red Deer, and this is Harry is on Life Talk. Hello, Harry.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. You're on with Paul Young.
Right. I just wanted to ask one question. I read in an interview with Susan Woloski that you're no longer a member of any church. Is this true?
Oh, the question, I barely hear you, but I think you were asking me if I was no longer a member of any church?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a member of the church, which is the community of faith that bases all their hope and centrality in the person of Jesus. As far as a local congregation, I'm not a member. That is, I'm not a signed-up member anywhere, although I'm in them all the time and part of them and involved with them all the time.
But you're not attending a specific church on a Sunday morning basis every week?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. And the reason?
Partly because of schedule, and partly because this gives me a tremendous amount of freedom to be in any kind of denominational kind of perspective. I don't have to go through a series of 20 questions to find out whether I'm Baptist or Pentecostal or something like that. But they're very difficult, very hard, and because we're dealing with a very painful subject.
On my shelf, but and I'll probably read it soon.
All right. Well, when you do read it, you call back to this program and you tell us what you thought. Harry, thanks for the call.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk to Anastasia.
Yes. Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah, I have read the book. I got it from the library, but I'd sure like to have a copy of my own.
Okay, so you've read the book. Your thoughts on the book, Anastasia?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I had to read it twice, the second time over just to get, you know.
What impacted you the most about the book, Anastasia?
Well, I think when he meets God in the shack. Mm-hmm. And what really surprised me, why did he choose a woman to be God?
Paul, go ahead.
That's a great question. And I did it for a lot of different reasons. One is, I'm writing this for my kids. I'm not thinking anybody else is ever going to read this, so I can do whatever I want. And I wanted to tamper with the paradigms that we have, that we think of God as a grandfather, like a white Anglo-Saxon male grandfather who is kind of in a distant heaven, disapproving and just tribal, cannibalistic, spirit-worshipping people. But they were my family. I was, my parents were young. They were part of a generation that didn't know it had baggage and dad. So the question about his relationship with God as Father, and the beauty of the relationship is that God comes to us, knowing how lost or stuck we are, and God's not male or female. God's spirit, and so there is this element and quality in which I use imagery. Do I believe that God looks exactly like that? No more than I do that he looks like a white grandfather. Yeah. And but this allows us to see and look into the character of God in a different way.
Anastasia, you hold on line. We'll make sure you get a copy of the book.
Okay.
All right, and let's take one more call before news here. This is Kathy. You're on Life Talk.
Hi there. Mr. Young, thank you very much. I've just started it. I've just gotten to the part where where Mac makes it to the shack and meets God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and it's really great. I've been doing most of the reading actually at the hospital because my father's in ICU right now. So yesterday afternoon I was visiting, and I just made it to the part there, and a little bit into where they're talking to Mac, and I got the giggles a little bit there just because I thought this is going to be fun is what I'm thinking, and I know I'm expecting heart-wrenching stuff to come too, but just some of it just made me laugh.
You're right, Kathy. There is some humor in the book as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm convinced that God is a God who loves humor.
Yes.
Because joking and laughter and all those things are part of our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kathy, thanks for the call.
Thanks, Wade.
All right. Well, there we go. We're out of time. Paul, appreciate your time today. I know you're going to be busy over the next 3 days, and we'll give all the information of where people can meet you and hear you, but really appreciate you being on the program today. The book is called The Shack by William Paul Young, about 6 million copies in print right now, hugely successful, and appreciate you taking time to be on the program today.
Hey, Wade, thank you so much. Blessings to you all.
You too. You're listening to Life Talk. My name is Wade Sorochan.